Thomas, it's a beautiful sunny day in Bamberg.
Yeah, it's a small place actually outside Bamberg, Franconia, is where I originally come from.
Wonderful.
You,
Thank you.
Carolina.
Thank
for
you for
having me.
inviting. Thank you for inviting us to your incredible exhibition. Another, which I adore the sentence, that you phrased, continues to go between countries. This is fantastic.
Between countries and the countryside, actually.
Yes, yes. And so you created the gallery, which,
Yep.
what inspired you, Thomas? If we can go a bit close to you, would be lovely.
Yeah,
Yes, thank you.
I'll come to you a little bit so we can talk
Yes,
a little bit better. What inspired me? I mean, this place that you see behind me, it's been in my family for what is that now, 4 generations, and yeah, it's a lovely place. So feel- always felt quite attached. I just felt I want to do something with it, and in recent years it's been much more, imminent or um, thing to
okay. So good morning, Thomas. It's
Hold on one second. Oh, that was bad. Okay, again.
good morning, Thomas. How are you?
Hi, Carolina. Good morning. Nice to have you.
Good morning. A sunny day from nearby Bamberg, as you said,
Yep.
In the gallery. So your new project, and congratulations for inviting us to your opening.
Thank you very much for joining.
And as I said before, so hopefully this time will work. Third time lucky. Your gallery it continues between countries. That's I love this sentence, Thomas. So what inspired you to create the gallery?
Well, between countries, that's sort of a definition of my life for the most part. And
Yes.
but also, I've been living in New York. I've been living in China for 6 years, and the pandemic brought me back here to where I actually come from. This building has been in the family for 4 generations. I kind of grew up with it, and it's a fantastic place. So it called for some activity, and so I decided to create my platform here in the gallery where I can show things that around here probably nobody has ever seen. And
yes.
And at the same time, the world is a fairly big place, but we can all meet in one place, and that's what we're actually doing right now through technology. So the world has changed a lot, and that makes me very confident that I can communicate from here and to here, from wherever I am between the countries.
I think that's the best that we, and the new reality of this new brave world. I think it's beautiful to be this local globalization, as you said. We can be, hopefully we will come and visit you very, very soon, because it looks wonderful. Yeah. But I think it's for our new reality, we have to find a new digitalization. So, but Thomas, can you tell me about your the choice of this incredible place?
Well, it's not a choice. It came to me, right? It chose me in a way. And because my great grandfather actually came here, and he bought this as a mill, and until today, the mill obviously doesn't work anymore, but we still have 2 turbines, and we produce a little bit of electricity that then kind of gets fed into the system, and electricity system. So basically it's a very green place, and also that is something that is important to not only to me, it's important for all of us if you want to survive on this planet. So in a way, the gallery will be fueled by green energy also, which is it's another element that adds to this.
Wonderful. And which artist did you choose? They are coming from your insight. We have you sent me some beautiful pictures, but of course, now you will guide us through your exhibition.
Well, it's really the first time that I'm only showing dead artists for some strange reason. I recently started collecting, German post-war informal artists, which, funny enough, I knew the works for a very, very, very long time, and basically grew up with them. And but I found new appreciation in China. Oh, that still is. And, no, it was very interesting. When I moved to China, and after a short while, when galleries and artists and collectors started trusting me, they asked, Thomas, why is it that Germany has so many famous painters right now, like Gerhard Richter, Sigmar Polke, Baselitz, Kiefer, and all those? And I said, well, you have to actually look at the generation before. You have to look at the teachers of those artists, because they were actually initially inventing some of the language that then they kind of brought to perfection, if you want to say. So I not only advised them, and I was able to bring some works to China. I felt that if I'm interested in that, I should also engage with my own resources. And so I started putting together a little collection. And so for the first show in my gallery here, I decided to show that as a sign of my commitment to this part of my activities, because I want to continue referencing this art back and forth. And mind you, I'm talking about the time frame from 1949 roughly to, say, the late 1970s, early 1980s, when that art was really there in Germany and very present. Exhibitions in New York at the Museum of Modern Art, in Paris, in famous galleries. And but now there's a little bit less attention. So it's maybe a little bit like a Gutai moment for German informal right now. Remember Gutai, same period, they actually had connections with the German informal artists. And nobody would look at that until, say, 10 years ago. So I also felt it's, there's a generational problem. This group of people, I said, almost all of them died. Some of their collectors are still alive. Some of the galleries are still alive, but they are old and there's not so much activity anymore. But I personally felt there is another deeper connection between those artists and artists in Asia, and that has to do with the way they're painting. And that, I guess, I should show you in front of the work. So please join me to come inside. And,
we follow you.
Yeah.
We follow you, but it looks really wonderful weather. Yesterday we were in San Gimignano in Toscana, and today we are with you in nearby Bamberg.
It's funny. I was just thinking about Italy a little bit.
Yes. Thomas, we lost you for 1 second. This is just a connection between entering inside and outside.
Special foods and what have you, the culture and all that. And this is very much true also for big parts of Germany. We're never really a grand nation like France, for example, but so it's also time to kind of think about those local differences a little bit more.
Yes. And it was,
I love
again,
San Gimignano.
Next time you have to join me.
I should join you. Yeah.
Yes, I'm coming definitely as soon as you come back from your another adventure, art adventure that we will hear a bit later. So what, Thomas, you have on your background a wonderful piece.
This is maybe the most spectacular piece that I have. It's It's a painting installation by an artist called Bernhard Schulze.
Yes.
He made that piece in 1962, 63, and it's called Mandala Migoth. Migoth is an artificial word that he used to describe certain works, certain aspects of his work. This kind of abstract, semi-figurative structures that seem to grow into the rough and very wild. That's really a museum piece, and so I'm very proud to have this. And
it's incredible. But what is the material?
It's really funny. I mean, there's a wooden board, and then he started building this structure. It's actually much more stable than you would imagine, and but then he uses chicken wire and probably gesso. What's that in English? You know what I mean. I think it's forgot the English word. And then he actually uses his old underwear also to wrap around it. You sometimes see it's like men's white underwear, and you just cringe a little bit, but it's what it is. And then he starts painting. He's actually a fantastic painter also. And at the time he was
fantastic.
At his peak of his career, he was very, very famous. There's a picture of Villa Hammerschmidt. That's that used to be the seat of the German president in Bonn. And so there's a dining room.
Yes.
And the dining room was kind of lined with his paintings. So he was really there. And still at Museum Ludwig in Cologne, you can find a very, very large painting of his. And in their lobby, because he donated a prize that's given to a younger painter every year. So, and I actually have quite a few of his works. I have two more paintings and a couple of drawings and prints. I don't know. There's something very fascinating about him, and it's the post-war generation of artists, and I kind of keep wondering, even though they talk about abstraction and non-figuration, and they don't want to tell stories per se, some of the works seem to be drawn, at least from a subconscious mind that obviously has been shaped by the experience during the war, because they all had to serve the army. So you can see that this drawing, for example. It's called Tower Cadaver Migoth. And if you go a little bit closer and zoom in, you almost feel like you're seeing some spine at the back of a human being with kind of like arms torn off and things like that. It's very, 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 very rough. And, so I'm never quite sure what I'm looking at there, but it gives me so much to see. And there's so much to consider. And then if you look at it, it almost becomes a Chinese landscape, right? The way it kind of comes out of nowhere, those foggy middle grounds that very often Chinese ink paintings have, and then some rock formations that kind of go up there. I brought a couple of friends from China to Germany a few years ago, and we were going through galleries looking at this. And I remember, we were in Cologne, and my friends were looking at a painting by Dahmen, another artist that I also have here, and they were looking at it for about 10 minutes, kind of turning their heads and looking at it closer. The galleries became really, really nervous, and he asked me, Thomas, what are they doing? I said, they're looking at the painting. Because that's what Chinese people do. They have learned how to look very closely. They appreciate the brush stroke. They appreciate the way it's made, but they also try to feel what the artist has put into this. And they also try to feel if they can replicate that feeling within themselves. So they're trying to kind of synchronize with what they see. So there's a very, very high standard of aesthetic experience in China that makes those works very, very interesting to Chinese people. I can show you another painting I have over there.
Yes.
It's really a late painting from 1996. And if you, I don't know if it translates on the screen. Unfortunately, the lighting is a little bit mixed here. But the chromatic explosion there, if you see how he paints from dark to light, and what happens with the color and the brush, it's really quite an exquisite painting. Everybody loves it. Everybody I've shown this painting to, they say, wow, this is great.
It is, and you know, I think it's you are, again, I'm trying to be as your spectator, as your audience, trying to get this incredible feeling of details. It's really beautiful. But so this one, when did you collected, Thomas?
Sorry, why or what or when?
Both.
You know, I've been following this for the better part of the last few years, and you know, it's not very often that something comes to market that you think, okay, this is a piece that I would like. Some of them I was able to get. There was one that was auctioned off at Sotheby's in Paris not too long ago, and unfortunately I couldn't get that one. That was another beautiful piece by Schulze. But you know, you can't have everything. So I think, you know, I already have a very good cross section of what he's done, and you know, the work is really well researched. There's a 2-volume catalogue raisonné that lists every single painting he's ever made in every installation. So you can also feel kind of you know, you can be sure that it's an original, and you can be sure it's really authentic. So it's not too difficult to actually engage with that kind of art, which is actually true for almost all of the artists from that generation. There's also a research unit at the University of Bonn that opened a few years ago. Professor Zuschlag, who is and his team, they're trying to research the history of German formal art to more depth. And I guess there are a few exhibitions in the making in the future in museums. So I feel it's really there are a lot of, you know, different people in different parts of Germany at the moment that are working on showing the intrinsic value of the work again. And, yeah, but maybe we should continue a little bit.
Yes. But it's
show you some of the works.
It's beautifully done,
so here
Thomas.
You see a little bit like what it used to be. It was an old mill, meaning, you know, there was a big wheel outside that would turn the smaller wheels, which would in turn move all the machinery. That was in here. It's of course all empty now, and so that gives me space for the gallery.
Fantastic! It's so original.
More artists in this little corner. Maybe my favorite one is Carlfred Dahmen. He came from an area in Germany where they were coal mining. So, you know, ripping open the earth and, you know, digging everything out so you could see the different strata in earth history. And what he did was he was making landscapes, quite abstract landscapes. But then he moved to the south of Germany and bought himself a little castle with a farm next to it. So he found all these objects that you see in this object box. and put them together to create some concrete yet very abstract landscapes. And if you squint your eyes a little bit, you can see, still the strata here and then something there. And there are actually photos of his that he made in the countryside, where he puts these paintings and objects outside, and sometimes in the winter. And then you would see the same kind of abstract formation. You would see this kind of snowy area path leading towards the horizon, and then some trees and what have you. So he's been very much informed by his experience in the landscape.
This is also it's a really wonderful. I was seeing before in your invitation on the car, beautiful, but of course it's even more beautiful to see it from not a picture. Bellissimo, bellissimo.
Yeah.
So
this
dramatic.
Is also the generation. Yeah. This is also the generation that pretty much at the same time when Rauschenberg was working in New York in the 50s. And was including all sorts of everyday objects into the work. They were doing the same, but from a very different cultural background. Mm-hmm. So I guess the wheel was invented many times over, and of course they knew about Rauschenberg, but back then, differently to us today, they didn't have much information. There was no internet. There were hardly any catalogs. The catalogs they could get, they were mostly black and white. So until they could make enough money to travel to New York, which was, incredibly complicated at the time compared to the times before the pandemic, I should say, they just didn't have that amount of information that we have today, and therefore, it smells differently, it tastes differently. And it even looks differently. They have a very distinct background rooted in their own experience. And I would argue that, this is a generation that has seen so many things that, I'm happy I've never had to see. But yeah, it's interesting how they kind of worked through this in their traumata, I guess. But we also have a second floor, so I should kind of guide you up there.
But this is also beautiful, Thomas. These two pieces before you go up.
Yeah. Okay, so this the print in the back is by Gunther Frutrunk. He is not exactly part of that group. He's maybe like 10 years later. He brought geometric abstraction to art in the 1960s, 70s, became very, very famous. And, he's kind of in between abstract expressionism and Neo-Geo. He, again, was, front and center in all the big museums at the time. And if you would divide Germany in two parts, the further south you get, the further you get towards Switzerland, the more geometrical the art gets for some reason. And one reason is that Max Bill Bauhaus left a lot of influence down there. And the Swiss aesthetic is also quite rectangular, as you probably know. And so it comes from that region of Germany. And,
fantastic.
And he's maybe the most, how do I phrase that? His work has been seen by the most Germans you could imagine, but they don't even know it's art because there is a supermarket chain, one of the most successful supermarket chain here in Germany. And the owner commissioned Frutrunk to design a plastic bag for them, and they use it until today. So it's been printed, hundreds of millions of times. And so people bring home their grocery in basically an artwork. I also thought this was fascinating.
Incredible, but wonderful to hear. And we don't know, you can't tell us which supermarket.
Oh, it's called Aldi. I'm not being
okay.
But it's, I should have a bag here, but I actually don't.
Okay, next time. But bellissimo. But sometimes, as you said, people live with art without even realizing. you know,
Exactly.
where this incredible inspiration have come from. And fantastic. I love this contrast between green and black, and also this other
There's some
this
blue
other
stripes that make it actually vibrate a little bit. So if you zoom in closer, you can
yes,
see
we
that.
can see more green. Ah, yes, yes,
Closer.
yes, indeed, indeed. So now we can see it perfect. Yes, bellissimo.
So the blue is actually incredibly important because it kind of gives this thing.
Of course,
sort of, you know,
it does. It's very deep, actually, very deep. Bellissimo. No, thank you for the detail. Actually, it was very, very, very important to see. And this
this skull-like thing,
yeah, it's a
he's
skull.
actually the
Yeah,
only
it's a skull.
living artist that is in the show. It's Dana Knauf. He
Oh.
was also of a younger generation, if you want to say. He took part in Documenta in 1972 as a, you know, it was sort of the second generation after the first one. And he's also kind of a very, you know, almost obsessive artist. He wanted to understand life and life to the fullest, and that, you know, death is a big part of life also. So he started working in a crematorium where they would burn the bodies and give you back the earth. So he's working there for, I think, half a year to experience what that transition is from, you know, dying to being entombed. And then he went to a blacksmith and he started creating those things from old gas flasks, you know, those big gas flasks. And he was burning the metal and he was slamming on it until it looked a little bit like what comes out of the furnace after you have died. And so very intense. He also went to Mother Teresa in Kolkata to work in her house for quite some time to understand what you know, what it is to be poor and sick in India. And then he continued to work in an asylum for mentally ill people, loony bin, really, if you want to put a simple word to it. So he was working with you know, people with psychosis and things like that to also understand this, and made like very, very intense drawings from this. So another artist who, in my view, is currently kind of underestimated. And, you know, but then again, I put him here because two works don't make sense. You need three to kind of build sort of a nice exhibition. So I put him here also because it's sort of a little announcement, because I want to make an exhibition with him and a Chinese artist sometime next year.
Oh, fantastic.
Negotiating this, so I cannot say too much about this.
Oh, we can't wait. But you know, you know, there is this suspense that you're creating, and also this pathos. It's really, really intense. Beautiful, beautiful piece. If you, as I said before, you know, we were at the end. It's so important to know the story that there is behind each piece, and it brings a piece even more alive than, you know. Than I think it's fascinating to hear.
Well, that's in my view what art is about. It's about, you know, human experience that has entered an artwork, and then, you know, it gets communicated in powerful ways, and you need to first open up, and you need to have a little bit of information to actually be able to appreciate it. But that, to me, is the value of art, that kind of human, you know, very basic engagement. But talking about human, I'm going to show you something other than human, which I also like very much.
Okay, it was we're following you the structure is beautiful, Thomas. Really, congratulations, because
you see
it's really
this tree back there.
Yes.
And you should get a little bit closer. You can actually see what it is.
So is a branch?
See those strange patterns?
Yes.
So this thing was washed up in front of our mill. You know, the river brought this. And you know, the river is full with beavers. And the beavers, they kind of cut down or, you know, bite and chew off the trees, and then, you know, they kind of swim down the river. And if you look at this rather, you know, abstract pattern of the bite marks, and an artist friend of mine came by and said, you know what, doesn't that look a little bit like, like structures of, say, blanking on the name, just had the name, you know, another artist from that generation. So there's sort of an aesthetic quality sometimes in things that come directly from nature.
Incredible.
So that's why I included it here, because it's another, forgive me, it's another
yes.
little hint towards what I want to do with the program in the next few years. I want to also map out the space between art and nature, because
yes,
that's what the place here is about as well.
This is beautiful, Thomas, because it reminds me also of a painting that we saw in Geneva. But you know, because there were signs, tribal signs that were used in Africa for describing a person or an entire community, and it reminds me of that. It's incredible, though. But you see, nature, bellissimo, tribal signs. I love this piece.
Sorry.
Yes.
So that makes you wonder how, you know, aesthetic experience is maybe not limited to humankind. Could be that, you know, there are patterns that are so deep, you know, in a bodily sense, in a physical sense, that there's appreciation in beauty, I would say, that kind of crosses that border even. I don't know. It's just a theory at the moment.
Yes, yes, indeed. Bellissimo. It's again beautiful that you find it next to your, you know, next to your nature gives back something back.
Maybe I can show you the rest of the gallery from here, and we'll kind of have a camera pan a little bit.
It's enormous, the space, very spacious, Thomas. Bellissimo.
It's good. There's another floor upstairs, but that's still, you know, very much in you know, there's a lot of stuff I need to kind of clean up.
In construction, okay. The very, very to the detail, very well done. Molto bello. You must be very, very proud. I think it's. How long does it take to arrive? From,
say that again.
Yes, from Bamberg. You said it's close to Bamberg.
Oh yeah, it takes about 15-20 minutes to get here from the train station in Bamberg, and it takes 2.5 hours to get to Berlin from the train. So it's not very difficult. You know, I do this every week more or less, and so yeah, I sit on the train, write a couple of emails already there. And then, you know, it's not prohibitive anymore. It's quite accessible. And, of course, you know, I don't have people that come here during the day just because they're around. So, but you know, it's interesting. There's another gallery in the countryside in the other direction of Nuremberg, and he had galleries in Munich and in Berlin before, and decided also to move to the countryside. So I'm not the first, actually. And I would think there will be more following, because it's a very special experience when you're here. And that's maybe even more valuable, because the people that actually find their way, they really make a commitment. Therefore, you have a better quality of communication, and so it improves the experience, I would say. And, you know, cuts out the bullshit, to be frank. And, yeah, but I want to show you another artist that I'm very much fond of, and that's Karl Otto Götz. This small gouache here. He made those very, very, very quickly. So he would meditate for an hour, sometimes a bit longer, and then he would pick up the brush or the spatula, and then basically pour the paint on the canvas very, very, very quickly. And he had this little step ladder next to his painting, so he would, walk up, look at it from above, and then go down and make a few corrections, and then that was it. Painting's done. But it took from him a lot of focus, meaning, if you're not in the right state of mind, it would not work. So, and that also has a lot to do with calligraphy, with, sort of, he disputed this, but there are some similarities to kind of Asian ways of making art. You need to kind of first find yourself within yourself. You need to meditate, and then it kind of pours out as an experience onto the paper, onto the canvas, and then it becomes a valid statement, or it doesn't, and then it just goes away. And here you can even see how, it's not exactly sure, but you can see how it kind of goes down here, up here again, changes direction again, and changes direction again. So this is not, because some people have asked me, is this cut out from a larger piece? And I'd say, no, you can see that. The movement goes here and straight back here, and then around the circles, and that, and in the, this is a work on paper, but, when he worked on canvas, he could push the paint even further, and he would take away paint in, by using spatula. Basically, it's the same technique that his student Gerhard Richter has applied to much success. And he also, it's also an interesting fact that he. Oh, where do I start? Too many stories popping up in my head right now. So he was working on the floor, obviously, otherwise, can't do this on, with a painting on an easel. Very much like Jackson Pollock, on the floor in a kind of performative action. And it's kind of funny. He was, during the Second World War, he was a pilot, fighter pilot. So he saw the world from above, and he does the same thing in his paintings. And there's a coincidence maybe that a lot of those artists in German informal, they were all in the Air Force, German Air Force at the time. And you wonder why that is. Some of them were pilots, others were in telecommunication. I think Götz was interested in both. And he was a professor in Düsseldorf at the time when also Namjoon Paik was there. And he was actually friends with Namjoon Paik. So they were trying to figure out the impact on radio technology and even, data that they would transmit in the aesthetic. So there are some very early pixel paintings by him from the 1960s that you can see are based on information, 1960s, right? And at a time when nobody knew what a pixel was and what digital, unit would have been. So, but it's a difference if you kind of paint black and white squares, or if you paint just, as an aesthetic choice, or if there is a yes/no information encoded in it, and you can see it. And so, together with Namjoon Paik, he developed those pixel paintings, which then, of course, have informed Gerhard Richter's work later, who did all these like color field, color square paintings. So it's kind of very interesting to see how this generation was very instrumental in forming the generation of artists that in the 1980s, 90s rose to fame. That's part of the, the story to tell, and the story that I would like to bring to China in a survey exhibition about this generation, which I'm actually also working on at the moment.
Wonderful. No, thank you, Thomas, because I think this is, as you said, we would have not known this detail, as you said, from working on the Air Force and going in such a beautiful. I think it's a beautiful detail that you your knowledge is again fascinating to listen to all these art talk stories in and you can feel the passion of each piece is in your heart, the bellissimo.
No, I mean it's forgotten. I mean, when I was a young man and I was getting interested in art and I was looking at this and I thought, I don't like this, it's old men and what are they doing? I wanted something different. So it's kind of funny to now finally come back to something that I've seen growing up and finding a new appreciation, and maybe I'm more patient, but also I see that there was another time of intensity that I had no access to because I was just too young at the time. But now I see that they actually informed me in ways that I hadn't known. So it's part of what you can do in life. You can learn and you can communicate this. So I'm quite happy. There's another one that I have here. It's a little bit bigger, but that's but also a beautiful one, I think.
Well, if we see it slowly with the detail, bellissimo. And this one is Thomas by the same artist.
Same artist, Carl Götz. Yeah.
Yes, I can see it's like a.
Yeah, you can see.
Yes.
You can see the connection to Shui Mo, to Chinese ink wash paintings.
Yes. And this splash of again, not of colors, but of this black. But you can feel the spreading into the bellissimo. Very nice. But as you going back to what you were saying before, I think it's a way of growing up. We go. It's a way of our human being to appreciate what we first maybe we were too could it be too immature to appreciate, and now that we go back to a different state of mind.
I would say it's slightly differently. I mean, when you're young, you need to kind of assert yourself. Therefore, you need to be a little bit destructive, in order to establish something new. But there's a time when you can be more at ease and actually appreciate things that you would have not looked at too much before.
Yes.
So there's another artist I have 3 smaller pieces only. Gerhard Höhme. So Carl Götz and Gerhard Höhme were both professors in Düsseldorf. And Düsseldorf subsequently, I think, became the most important art school in Germany. That's the time when Joseph Beuys was there with his free class, and he was, inviting everybody who wanted to study art to come to his class. So Beuys at one point had hundreds of students, and Götz and Höhme were both president and vice president of the art school there, and they didn't quite know what to do with this. In essence, I think they were pretty much appreciative of the ideas of Joseph Beuys, just that they had different arguments. So Gerhard Höhme, for example, which you can't see here, he's been one who's been working also with everyday objects. He made canvases, and then from the canvases he would have vinyl tubes that would spill out and spill into the room. So he was somebody who wanted to delimit painting, basically deframe it, making it accessible to, you know, almost a sculptural experience. So he didn't want to have the confines of a painting that shows space behind the frame. He wanted the audience to be part of it, participate in the artwork, if you want. Exactly really what Beuys was talking about, just they were making an aesthetic argument, whereas Beuys was making a political argument, and that's where they couldn't agree. But so, you know, that's kind of sometimes what happens when strong personalities kind of clash. And Höhme is much more poetic. And, you know, if you look at those vinyl tubes that come out of the paintings, pretty much at the same time when Eva Hesse was doing something like that in New York. So it's unclear who knew of whom first, or if they didn't know about each other at all. I haven't really figured this out yet. But again, you know, there are certain aesthetic solutions that pop up in different places of the world almost simultaneously. And, so he's also been working with a lot with text and writing, and that's something that really, both of it, you know, the use of simple materials and the writing, which, you know, both of it inspired his student Sigmar Polke, who's been doing a lot of both. So he's been Sigmar Polke's teacher, and there are letters that have been published where, you know, they discuss certain aesthetic ideas, and Sigmar Polke tries to enlist support by his teacher Höhme to you know, in his work. So again, you can see there's a strong connection between teacher and student, something that nobody in the West really likes to talk about. But you know, in Asia, that's more of interest, because they also understand that ideas, they also travel not only from, you know, from one person to an audience, but also from, you know, within the art or between the artists. Say that. So he was another very influential teacher, and you know, very strong artist at that.
Beautiful.
And then I only have a small drawing by Han Trier. Han Trier was Georg Baselitz's teacher. Han Trier, I think, you know, he's an interesting guy. He was actually left-handed. And you know, back then in school, they retrained everybody to use their right hand. So he ended up making paintings with two hands simultaneously. So, you know, if you have some larger paintings of his, you see, or let me describe it differently. You know, when you look at a, say you look at a print that has been made, and then when it's printed, it's actually in the reverse. So sometimes you feel that there's something wrong with the brush stroke, because it seems to go in the wrong direction, because it's not, you know, it's a mirror image of the actual thing. So that is something that Han Trier exploited in his works, that he would do something that you could read with in one direction, but then use the brush to go against the direction of reading a brush stroke or an image. So you see these things and your head goes kind of like, and you feel like, oh, from which side is this painted, or what's the space? How does he define the painterly space? And then remember Baselitz, you know, when he first started painting, he was actually making segments. He was dissecting the picture into different, you know, horizontal stripes. And then shortly after that, he started flipping the painting upside down and paint it upside down. And it's, again, it's an idea sort of derived and developed from what he saw his teacher do, kind of disturbing the way we would normally read an image. And by doing so, you know, setting, you know, off enough irritation that we would actually question what we're seeing. And if we're able to question what we're seeing, we can question reality too. So there's a you know, straight line from his teacher to Baselitz to, maybe the most important aspect of Baselitz's work, and to make us look at the world differently. It's kind of, I know it's shortening the argument, but yeah. So that's why I'm kind of interested in those things. And here we have another big painting by Bernhard Schulze. It has another very poetic title. Mondverlangen nach der Erde. It's the moon's desire for the earth. And, you kind of see the earth kind of in almost boiling. It also has like very strong three-dimensional.
Oh, fantastic! I couldn't see it before. Can you imagine?
Yeah.
It's incredible. Yeah. From far away until until the detail.
It's impossible to experience that on a flat
yes,
screen.
Yes.
It's still important.
The title is quite
to see the original.
Very impressive.
Just see what he does here with the paint and the brush strokes and the density of the experience here.
Wonderful color.
Horizontal structures. It's quite dense. So two of the works, this one and the big Migov, the first work we saw in the beginning of our conversation, they will both go to a museum in another city in Germany into a larger survey show on German Informal that will open on September 23rd. So in a few days, shipped out.
Bellissimo. It's very impressive, and thank you for for showing me the details. It's really, we can get a glimpse of. It must be even more beautiful to see it from da vicino, from close by.
From close up.
Yes,
oh my God, I forgot my Italian. It's too bad.
No, I don't think so. It's really beautiful. Congratulations, Thomas, because it's so beautiful, this walk through your this collection. It's really bellissima. And but Thomas, how can people reach you? That's one thing very important.
How do people reach me? They can call me, they can send me emails, they can come. No, it's very easy. You can send emails to, and now please send an email to thegallery@thomaseller.com, and then I will answer.
Perfect. Perfect. No. For people, that now that they can come from all over the world, especially because finally things are opening up with all our.
Thank God.
Our after COVID resolutions, and again, can't wait to reach you. But yes, but could you give us a little? You are very very soon off for another, as I said, artistic adventure that we hopefully we will connect when you are there.
Yeah. So on September 26th, I'll take off to Kyrgyzstan. And I'm quite excited to see that. It's a totally different culture from ours. They've been nomadic until basically the Soviet Union transformed the nomads into farmers. But, as soon as the Soviet Union collapsed, they were going back to basically to the mountains and, roaming in the pastures there. Only in the winter they come back down to lower areas, but it's pretty high up in a friend of mine, Shabek Amankur, who I met in Berlin a while ago, said, Thomas, you have to come, you have to see this, you have to experience nature there and experience the culture there. And he's actually a fantastic artist in his own right, but he's also a super connector. He's very good at connecting the worlds, and that's how we started our conversation, right? A place between the countries. And if things go well, there will be a manifestation of that culture here, hopefully next year. And so I will hopefully bring something with me, or bring more people over in the future. And then again, we have a discussion between art and culture and nature that is very global, and it is infused with very, very different notions of those words, because those words, culture and nature, they mean nothing if you don't put experience behind. And if things go well, you would be able to experience this here.
Wonderful, wonderful, Thomas. So again, you leave us a bit in suspense, and we hope to to follow you.
Let's have a conversation when I'm there. I'll show you the mountains.
Yes, with pleasure. That would be fantastic. So please keep us updated with all your voyage, artistic voyage, and we can't wait. But thank you so much, Thomas, for having guided us today through your Galleria, the gallery, and again, can't wait to see it and to come and see you in Germany as soon as you are back.
Wonderful. Well, thank you all for joining me here virtually, and thank you, Carolina, for making this possible and for the wonderful conversation.
Thank you to you again. Always so fascinating to listen to your incredible knowledge. This is for me really inspiring. Thank you again, Thomas.
Thank you very much.
Have a wonderful, wonderful day. And
you too.
Beginning of the week. Goodbye. Goodbye.
Bye.
Ciao.